Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
When you have gotten past the energy shield, proceed directly to the rendezvous point. Understood?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Okay, everybody to your stations, let's go!
You like me because I'm a scoundrel. There aren't enough scoundrels in your life.
I happen to like nice men.
I'm a nice man.
Very nice.
You fixed us all real good, didn't you? My friend.
I love you.
I know.
So I'm going to explain how The Empire Strikes Back changed movies somewhat, and how it basically changed how movies are formatted. George Lucas is well known for his independence from Hollywood. He is the most successful independent filmmaker in the history of Hollywood. He just is in the history of filmmaking. And he didn't like the way Hollywood did things. He basically said in a talk at the Sundance Film Festival with Leonard Malkin and Robert Redford that Hollywood execs are unsophisticated and aren't as bright as the creatives. And he would be right, because Hollywood even now has not changed from that rule. We can see by the fact that Bob Iger, Alan Horn, and Kathleen Kennedy never intended to use George's script treatments for the sequel trilogy, and what we got was trash. So George, he went up to Marin County and went up to Northern California following Francis Ford Coppola to be independent away from Los Angeles. And you can see the independence of Francis Ford Coppola in the offer when he demands that they get Al Pacino, who was a relatively unknown actor at the time, to play Michael Corleone. Robert Evans wanted Robert Redford. All right, go sit in the corner and think about how bad that would have looked. A blonde, blue-eyed Sicilian. Not that that doesn't happen, but really? So Coppola got what he wanted, and it worked. Again, the creative wins and shows why he wins. All right, but let's talk about how The Empire Strikes Back took it to a whole new level. So we have these unions, the Directors Guild of America and the Writers Guild of America, that basically make sure that writers and directors are credited at the beginning of movies. And they allowed Lucas with Star Wars leeway because he wrote it and directed it. All it said was Lucasfilm and then the crawl. With The Empire Strikes Back, again, we have Lucasfilm Limited after the Fox fanfare, and then the crawl for The Empire Strikes Back. And the problem the Directors Guild of America had was George isn't credited, and neither was Irvin Kershner, nor was Larry Kasdan. Now, I don't know how they felt about it personally, but they do get credited in the credits, which is where, and on the poster, and which is fine. This movie being Star Wars and George being George, he again wanted it to follow the formula that the original trilogy or that the original movie had. It was filmed in England. Now, they have different rules. Okay. So what happened is the WGA and the Directors Guild threatened and tried to pull The Empire Strikes Back from the theaters because of the simple thing George didn't want to have the crawl directed by Irvin Kershner or an Irvin Kershner movie, blah, blah, blah. And they tried to pull the movie from theaters. Now imagine what that would have done to the franchise. However, George won and decided he would no longer be a member of the Writers Guild of America or the Directors Guild of America. And the reason why, because despite their charter of protecting writers and their best interests, directors and their best interests, they're no more better than the bureaucrats and the suits at the studios. Okay. And when you look at this, they wanted in a way to lay claim to what George created and the work that the other people created and did. And they also wanted to control what it looked like. Part of George's aesthetic is design, which is why you see industrial, World War II kind of design in the X-Wing fighters and the Millennium Falcon and the Star Destroyers. If you go back to the prequels, you see a sleek, almost Art Deco, and in some ways 1930s or 50s designs for the ships in the places that these ships inhabit, the people inhabit. George's aesthetic is design, story, and it doesn't end there. There's also a lot more to it, and we'll see that in a second.
I'm terribly sorry about all this. After all, he's only a Wookiee.
Impressive. Most impressive. There is no escape. Don't make me destroy you.
Now, if you sit back and look at the kerfuffle around what the WGA and the Directors Guild wanted, and you understand where George's stand on this, being as independent as he is and not wanting to be controlled is what made Star Wars better than anything. And everything else that came out of it, all the new Buck Rogers, Battlestar Galactica, etc., were not nearly as good as Star Wars. He opened up a portal for fantasy space adventure, but no one could quite get to it. Okay, he did this independently. He did this without 20th Century Fox suits telling him you can't do that, no, blah, 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 with their stupid focus groups and everything else. One of the things in the TV show The Offer is when focus groups can be useful. You're talking about poster art marketing. Fans don't like the flying V. All right, don't do it that way. The suits look at statistics and not what the story says. Like, we'll talk about characters. Han Solo. If the suits had had any ability to affect this character, he would probably not have been the guy that we know. But it was filmed in England. George had, and Irving Kershner had the chance to let Harrison be who he is as an actor, and we got a romantic hero and somewhat tragic, but ultimately triumphant character, which is what the fans want. Let's go to this guy, General Veers. Julian Glover, who showed up in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as Walter Donovan, plays him. One of George's favorite storylines is the hubris of the Emperor, of the Imperials, whether it be Wilf Tarkin or Sidious himself. Ultimately, they don't understand that there comes a time when you've got to pay the piper. And Veers does right away. Boom, gone. Okay. He's killed in the attack on Hoth. There you go. The story about the Millennium Falcon's hyperdrive not going well. This is a plot device to bring Vader's obsession with Luke. You wonder, does Vader feel Leia's force sensitivity and think it's Luke? That doesn't make any sense, but why is he trying so hard to grab the Millennium Falcon unless he knows that Luke and Han and Leia are friends? Okay. And he knows he can use their suffering to turn Luke to the dark side. Okay. There are things we don't know yet until towards the end of the movie. Here's Lucas and his best friend, Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg did not leave Hollywood. He did not defect. He is still part of the machine, yet until I think, I'm going to say after Saving Private Ryan, he kind of became part of it. He was kind of assumed by the Borg, if you want. But there's a difference between these two. Great filmmakers, but a difference. They created Indiana Jones together, but there's a difference. Now let's talk about The Empire Strikes Back as it stands in episodes 1 through 6, which are the only episodes that matter. Revenge of the Sith is, I think, the triumph of the prequels. It is a great movie. Again, the prequel haters hate the fact that it was all done in digital. It doesn't bother me. I don't know why it would bother them. It's a step up in technology. I think George was on the right track, but you've got people that are stuck again in a moment they can't let go. George Lucas, being a man of vision and a creative, had to do this movie the way he did it, just because it's who he is. And it worked. Now, does he regret using the digital? No. Though I think I have heard him state that he wished he had used more miniatures. Yet, the digital seemed fine by me. Again, Revenge of the Sith is the last piece, puzzle piece in the fall from grace of Anakin Skywalker. The Empire Strikes Back is the dark middle part of the trilogy, of the original trilogy. Okay, because this is how life is. All right, you're going to suffer, you're going to pay, you're going to go through a lot of hardships, and that's what that is. George understands that. As joyful at the end of A New Hope is, you have to be left with a cliffhanger and fear at the end of The Empire Strikes Back. However, that being said, George also leaves you with hope. At the end of the movie, you have defeated Luke Skywalker discovering that Darth Vader is actually Anakin Skywalker. They're watching the Millennium Falcon out the window of the medical frigate with the droids as Lando and Chewbacca go out in the to search for Boba Fett to save Han Solo. And there's hope here. You know, as sad and as terrifying as I was when I was 12 watching this movie, now that I look back on it, I remember my dad watching it with me when I was older and it came out in VHS before he died, saying, "They'll get him back." And I go, "Of course they do. I told you they did." And he goes, "No, I don't need to know that. They'll get him back." Han was my dad's favorite character. All right, he wasn't into samurais. He was into Wyatt Earp and the Western, and that's who Han Solo kind of speaks to, is the Western gunfighter hero. Okay, but the hope is there. If an old World War II veteran can see it, anybody can see it, and that's the thing about the darkest part of the original trilogy. There is still hope. Now, Revenge of the Sith is dark, but when you see Leia being presented to Breha Organa, and you hear the princess theme being played in the background, you have a feeling that you understand, because you know the story, that hope is alive. Okay, that's, I think, as big as the hero's journey is for George, I think the hope is as important as everything else in it, because it keeps you focused and it gives you a reason to come back. It also gives you a reason to have faith. Okay, Leia is a woman of great faith. She's like her mother. You know, when Padme said, "There is good in him, I know this." You know, that's Leia. That's Luke. Here he is being presented by Obi-Wan to Beru Lars. Okay. You hear da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da. That's Luke's theme. Okay. Again, hope at the end of this movie, which is even darker than The Empire Strikes Back in a way, because of the wreckage Anakin Skywalker leaves in the end. The younglings killed, the other Jedi killed, Padme's death of heartbreak. Okay, did the Emperor suck her life force out? If George didn't say it, I'm not gonna go along. That's a fan theory. But the thing about it is, only someone who is independent of the Borg of Hollywood could do what George did. And the reason why I talk about this is, not only should we think about George's independence, all right, away from Hollywood, think about how much better his stories are because of it. Think about what it means for creatives going forward. Okay, he was unencumbered and doing what he wanted. He had the money. He was smart enough to get the merchandising for Star Wars, and that made him a billionaire. You know, and all this was sweat and blood, and tears and blood. You know, tears and stress that he put out for this. And it's one of those things where there are a lot of people out there that disapprove of him because he did something they didn't like. And I look at them and saying, well, you wouldn't be able to do much better. Okay, you really wouldn't. And I don't understand what they don't get about how George made these movies. They don't enjoy the fact he was an independent filmmaker and was able to do this away from Hollywood. All right? He didn't follow any formula but his own. That is something to be uplifted and held to the highest of all standards. Every filmmaker should be trying to do that. Instead, now we have activists, we have cowards in the C-suite who are unafraid of doing original stories, and we have greedy pricks in the C-suite milking franchises till they're dead. The ideas are not fresh, the ideas are not bold, and the culture suffers for it. We have an example of what should be done, what can be done, if one severs their ties to the bullshit of the establishment. I think it's about what being an American is. And I think it's about what being a true artist and creative is. This is Steph signing out. I'll see you around the galaxy.